Tonight, it is all things K-State. Grab a drink and join us on tonight's Tailgate. All right, well, thank you guys for joining us on tonight's Tailgate. As always, I'm Luke. I'm joined here with Michael. Dennis has got the bug or something, so he's not here with us tonight. But we also have with us some guests. We have the guys from Cocaine Willie, which is a podcast about Kansas State, and that's Chef, Matt, and Bob. Guys, how y'all doing tonight?
Fantastic.
Doing well.
Great.
Doing well. Thanks for having us on, guys.
I don't know. Thank you all for coming. It's awesome.
Yeah. So with one of the things that we like to do whenever we have our guests on is we just like to get their story as to how they became the fan of their team. So if each of you guys want to just share your story, just a quick brief summary or whatnot, why you guys love Kansas State, how you came to love Kansas State, just let us know. How was that story? How did that story unfold? You guys get to determine.
I'll start it off. My origin story, the way I got into Kansas State. I'm a '90s baby, military brat. Kind of moved all over the place. Started in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and then moved to Fort Riley, Kansas. Okay. And formative years when I really started getting into football was around 96, 97, 98. And Kansas State was kind of on top of the world. And that's when I was living out in Fort Riley. And, Michael Bishop was doing his thing in 1998, kind of taking the world over. And we late too long after that, early 2000s. And it just stuck with me. No matter where I moved, I was always down in the purple. And, I call myself like a native Kansan, even though I'm out in Ohio right now. I could be in Virginia, wherever. It just didn't matter. I always stuck with the purple. K-State's always been my pride and joy. It's, I'm in my almost my mid 30s now, and I'm still repping it like I went to school day.
Cool. Awesome.
I can go next. So I grew up with K-State my entire from upstate New York, and my mom's side of the family is all from Kansas, Southwest Kansas, in Dodge City.
Okay.
But I grew up wearing K-State stuff at school. Nobody understood that at school but me and my family, basically. So I wore a lot of purple. Basically, I like to say I didn't have a choice to go to K-State. I did make a decision to go to K-State. And obviously it was one of the best decisions I've made in my entire life, just because it's not just the athletic piece. Obviously, that's the one thing right now that kind of keeps me connected to the university.
Sure.
But I joined a fraternity. So Bob is one of my fraternity brothers. We've known each other for, 12 years now. Some of my best friends are from K-State. And I just have been, I'm really passionate about the school. It gave me so much in my 4 years when I was there, and then post those 4 years. And for me, I give back with not just season tickets that I pay for, but I truly bleed purple, believe in the school, believe we can do anything. I'm also a masochist because we go through so much stuff at K-State.
I hear you.
Self-inflicted things,
That's
admittingly. But yeah, and the background here, I'm pretty passionate about K-State. So I love the school.
Cool. You can tell by our background, we're passionate about forestry.
Yeah, big ag guys.
Yeah,
Until you didn't write at K-State.
And Forest Service rolls up to the Department of Agriculture. Fun fact for those who didn't know. Things I wouldn't know if I hadn't gone to K-State. But Bob Trollsby here. I am a sixth-generation Kansan, and my family, although I live in Colorado now, I still have family ties to Kansas. I still go back and visit them. in Great Bend, Kansas, right in smack dab. If you look at a map of the state of Kansas, it's literally as center in the state as you could possibly get. 6 generations of my family have lived in Barton County. So it's for me, it's a connection to just my entire family's from there. It's all I've lived and breathed my entire life. I've been going to games since I was 7 years old when they built the east side stands that have the club seating and the triple deck up there. And that was in Bill Snyder's heyday. It was the peak and the climax, if you will, of Snyder's success at the school and as head coach. And prior to him retiring, it was really insane to see kind of that culmination of success with his football program. And at the time, I really didn't appreciate it until we had the Ron Prince 3 years with him and becoming a student and going to school there from 2011 to 2015. Snyder had come back at that point, and that was when I started to really understand, this university may not even exist as a D1 institution if it wasn't for Bill Snyder and what he was able to accomplish there. And at that point in time, the basketball program had started to resurge after having doldrums for really the better part of 15 years prior to the end of the Lon Kruger era, Dana Altman to a degree, and then Bob Huggins coming in. So for me, it's sports is a huge part of it, but for me, it's also similar to Matt. It's tied to my family, and my mom went to K-State. My grandparents have been following the team for years and years and decades now at this point. So it's really in our blood, and I can't wait to raise my son to go to K-State games with me as well.
Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's we don't hear a lot of that, and that's the same way as I can't wait to take my kids to their first Ohio State game. I know it's a little bit different, different teams, but I think that's a cool thing is to share that with your family and kind of pass that on generation to generation. So now you mentioned Snyder, you mentioned some of those coaches. You're bringing back your head coach there. You had a couple guys leave, but you had, in my opinion, one of the best O-line coaches in the country kind of step up and come into a head coaching role. And then you brought in Matt Wells, right, as like what are all his titles? Like co-OC, quarterback coach, associate head coach. Like he's got this 45-page tail there. So what are there going to be any big changes? I mean, obviously coaching changes, but what's the offense going to look like now? Is it going to change much? What are your thoughts on these coaches? And I'll just kind of let you guys roll on that.
I kind of, I was always the big Connor Riley guy. I'd deem myself an offensive line guru, to say the least. But he displayed what he had in a little snippet in the Pop-Tarts Bowl versus NC State, and we didn't know what we were going to get. We kind of thought it was going to be a lot of run heavy, the prototypical, stereotypical, if you will, offensive line guy getting the play calling sheet for the first time. We thought we were going to run it 16 times and maybe throw it a couple times with a first-time quarterback at starting in Avery Johnson. But surprise, surprise, it was a 50-50 split. Almost, we kind of threw it a lot more than we thought we were going to. Offense looked very similar. But going into this offseason, I think we're kind of seeing what Matt Wells brings, and I know these guys will be able to tell a lot more about it, but you're seeing a blend of what Colin Klein had previously and what Courtney Messingham, even who he was at North Dakota State with Connor Riley, kind of all blend together, and you're going to see a lot of offensive line pulls and stuff that he can bring to the table, but what Matt Wells can bring in the passing game to bring Avery Johnson along in the passing game, vertical threats, all the offensive weapons that we have, and I'm sure we're going to touch on all that, but I think a lot of people had fear going into this offseason with Connor Riley, but I think a lot of it has been dampened down in terms of the fear and what he can do in terms of play calling.
One of the other things that we've heard a lot about this offseason is they're trying to simplify the offense. I'm not sure how Colin Klein's offense was complex and had wrinkles, but I'm not sure how they're simplifying things, but that's really been something you hear a lot about in the pressers and stuff during spring ball has been we're working on simplifying things. And I think part of that may be having a younger quarterback as your starter with Avery Johnson. But at the same time, there's a ton of articles written about how Avery Johnson was able to read defenses in the 4th grade and how high level his football IQ is. So I think it's more so for the wide receivers, some of the other position groups, the talented position groups at wide receiver, tight end, and otherwise that also have some younger guys. And we also have some talented transfer portal guys who have come in who aren't going to have as much time to learn an offense that has as many wrinkles as maybe a Colin Klein offense had at that point in time. So I think that's something that we're going to see a lot more of, is maybe simplifying things and getting back to basics in a way that maybe that wasn't the case with Klein. So it's going to be interesting to see in compare and contrast the two offenses once we get into August, September timeframe.
I mean, if you read between the T lines of kind of what Bob was just saying about simplifying it, I think you can kind of see that we're trying to go faster because that's where Colin Klein was kind of taking us. And I know Matt's about to talk about it, but we're kind of pushing the pedal to the floor, and then he leaves. And I think Connor Riley is just going to pick that baton up and keep going with it.
Okay.
And I think something to add with Matt Wells is with his pedigree. I mean, he was the head coach at Utah State, head coach at Texas Tech. But a lot of people were excited when he was hired, looking at what he's done in the past, and ultimately the guy that we think of as Jordan Love. He was the head coach for Jordan Love's development at Utah State, obviously a first-round pick. Around our fan base, there's a belief that Avery Johnson will be an NFL quarterback someday, and that was without Matt Wells. The hype that surrounded some of the portions of his freshman year season when he scored 5 touchdowns at Texas Tech, and obviously the bowl game against NC State. There's a lot of hype around Avery Johnson, and so it will be fun for us to see some of the things that Matt Wells will bring in just from a development perspective with Avery, how they're going to leverage some of those weapons around Avery Johnson. We have guys, even without the transfer portal, that really stepped up at the end of last season. And now that you have a guy like Dylan Edwards coming in from Colorado, it's just an added wrinkle, added speed that we're going to be able to leverage. So it's going to be fun to see how Connor Riley and Matt Wells work together in developing this offense and preparing it for very much what is a new look Big 12 in 2024.
Yeah, sure. Well, like going off of like what you're just talking about with Dylan Edwards, like what do you guys feel? What's your feeling, or what's the feeling or the sentiment around at K-State for the portal, like your losses and your wins so far this season?
Well, there's not a lot of losses.
That's fair.
I mean, Juan Donks, is that the one?
Yeah, one scholarship guy, that we lost.
Well, technically Will Howard.
Well, for the spring.
Oh, we're talking specific for the spring.
I didn't say that, but I just said.
He didn't say the spring.
But I mean, I know the Ohio State angle and all that, and
Sure.
To be fair, if we're bringing it all the way back to the fall, Will Howard was a loss.
Sure.
I mean, how do you want to slice it and dice it? Whether he was going to start, whether he was on a split time, it's all how you want to put. Whether you're wearing red glasses or purple glasses on
Sure, right. Yeah.
point. But I think in the spring window, there was a lot of panic around the college football world, whether it was going to be a cataclysm of like people just losing whole position groups and stuff. And just Kansas State just kind of silently went through it and lost one scholarship player in the spring. And it was a loss, but it wasn't anything that is worth kind of really noting. Offensive tackle. So we gained a lot of pieces.
Nice.
And obviously Dylan Edwards is the number one piece. They got him late in the spring. So but you got guys like Easton Kilty. I mean, that is a humongous piece that not a lot of people are going to be talking about. Position versatility on the offensive line. A 4-year starter at North Dakota. He's a guy that's going to be a plug and play left tackle for us
For sure.
And those pieces kind of go unnoticed, but those are instrumental in making the team go, really.
Sure. Yeah, that was one of the big things. Like, just looking at certain teams, you see offensive line help was a big need in a lot of different teams. So even getting a guy like that, like obviously, like you said, not many people are talking about it, but that's a big get right there. You mentioned the Will Howard thing. What are going to be the differences in what Will Howard's game was and what Avery Johnson? I feel like Avery Johnson just brings a lot more excitement, a lot more dynamic playmaking with his feet. So is that something you think they're going to work in a whole lot more in their offense?
It's actually going to be the opposite. We're going to be seeing him throw the football a lot this season. Which from his highlights and I mean, he was a standout player in the state of Kansas, right? And he has shown the ability in high school for these just incredible passes, accurate passes. Has a great arm. The difference is definitely going to be from an athleticism perspective between the two. I respect Will Howard for what he did at K-State, and I will say as many nice things about Will Howard because he was a huge impact player for us the past, technically 4 seasons. Avery's going to be more athletic, running the football and getting out of the pocket if things break down. And from what we've seen with his arm, albeit he has not thrown the football a ton other than the bowl game itself, but we have better, I would say, playmakers on the outside, guys that are going to be a little bit more healthy. We picked up Dante Cephas from Penn State, is a guy who we picked up in the fall, just adding another target. We lose Ben Sinnott, who was drafted in the 2nd round, but we have a sophomore in Garrett Oakley who's going to be basically the replacement for him. So the thing that we're going to see from Avery Johnson compared to Will Howard is just, I think he's a more dynamic player. He's not going to be a guy that's going to be running the football 15 or 20 times a game, even though he technically could, because he's quick and he's able to get himself out of trouble. But because we have, I would say, our 1-2 punch at running back is probably second in the Big 12 at this point. We don't need to run Avery Johnson 15 times a game. He's going to throw pretty well.
Yeah. You keep him as a stealth option, just in case he has to break out. But yeah, it's always great when you have the ability to have that like true dual threat where your running backs and your quarterback can run, but you don't need to rely on your quarterback running at all. What right now is the sentiment in Kansas or around K-State concerning the additions and the losses to the Big 12? Like, what are you guys? Are you guys excited because you feel like you guys are going to be at the top?
And just to kind of throw that in, how scared of Colorado are you guys?
Not scared of Colorado. It's not a state fan and alum living in Denver. The last thing I'm scared of is Colorado right now.
Okay.
Flip this, and on October 12th, I will be coming out on top, and people
No.
guarantee you that. But as far as the conference is concerned, I feel like collectively we view the Big 12 as in a stronger position than we could have ever possibly imagined it being in.
Okay.
After we got the news in July of 2021 that Texas and Oklahoma were going to be leaving, at that point we thought it was DEFCON 3. We were conference was going to fall apart. We were worried about, okay, where the hell are K-State and Iowa State going to end up?
Right.
Because there's no landing option because we don't have AAU status. So the Big 10 doesn't want us and the Pac-12 doesn't want us. And the Pac-12 made a huge mistake by, not going after any schools in the Big 12 and putting out their statement saying they weren't. So we all know who kind of came out on top in that battle. Sure. But I think we're all pretty excited about the additions because Arizona last year proved that they are a program on the rise, albeit it's going to be interesting to see with the new head coaches coming in to replace Jed Fish. Yep. Is he going to be able to continue to build on the success that Jed Fish put into place there? Arizona State is probably the least impressive when you look at football and basketball right now, just given where they landed on the men's basketball side of things in comparison to the other 3 schools.
Yeah, they just lost their quarterback too.
And I mean, who knows what they're going to look like this year? And I think Kenny Dillingham can be a good coach at some point, but he's got a lot to learn, and he's got not a whole lot of experience right now. And coaching it's a profession that requires a lot of wisdom and years of experience, I think, in a lot of cases. So we'll see about that. But I'm excited. Utah is an incredibly good. I mean, they are going on day one, probably going to be first or second for most people's picks to win the conference with Cam Rising at quarterback this next season. So I feel really, really solid about the future of the Big 12 and where the conference sits today. At the end of the day, we don't really get to call the shots as fans. We don't really get to call the shots when it comes to conference realignment and all of that, because we could look back in 2 years and they've decided that there's going to be 70 Power 5 teams split into 7 divisions of 10, and everything is just at the justice of what the powers that be decide. But I feel very, very confident in where the direction of the Big 12 is headed, if nothing else changes realignment-wise.
Fair enough. Anybody else have any thoughts? You all just agree? All in the consensus?
Bob, I mean, and that's from a guy that's, I'm more East Coast than both of them. So the additions were primarily the West Coast teams. And I mean, that helps regionalize it, make it more, we were kind of spread a little far east, but now we're really nationwide. That's what Brett Yormark really wanted to accomplish. As soon as he took over as commissioner, he wanted to make it a more national brand. And it might be to the detriment of teams like West Virginia and UCF and teams like Arizona having to go across country. But to be relevant and to stay alive, like Bob said, I mean, you kind of just you throw your hand onto the life raft and you kind of just have to survive. And I think we kind of threw our whole body into the life raft, and we're not just floating along. We're kind of directing the ship a little bit.
Right.
So it's good to see that we survived. We advanced a little bit. Like I said, we're at the mercy of, people that in my particular opinion, I don't think they care about football or sports in general. So it sucks in that sense, but we're here. We're fighting and we're doing it the best we can. But in terms of balance, and I think this is the most balanced the conference has ever been. There's no real recruiting dominant team in this conference, so we're all kind of on the same level, and that could be fun in terms of who's going to be in the conference championship every year. It could be anybody except for Colorado.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, we have we've had the conversation amongst ourselves here that it's like Big 12 really is like when you look top to bottom, they're the most, they have the kind of most even conference out there. Obviously minus Colorado, as we've all alluded to.
Arizona State.
But yeah, like they've got this very even. You just don't know. You don't know who's going to come out on top at any given time. I was kind of looking through, just jumping back into some of your players. I was just looking through some of the things that I've seen about K-State, and some interesting things. I saw that you guys only have one wide receiver that's under 6 foot tall, which I thought was a really cool stat. I saw that you had a guy named Tyson Struber, right, who's moving from wide receiver to linebacker. And then just some of these just really cool, really random stats. And I say all that just to kind of ask you guys, who's the one player this year that you're kind of watching and that you're excited to see? I think it's really interesting seeing a guy move from receiver to linebacker. You don't see that often, but who's the guy that you're anticipating to have a great season or just excited to see play?
Let me touch on Tyson Struble. Sure. Because that's a guy, maybe Bob and Matt can help me where he was, particularly in Kansas. I know he was playing 8-man ball. Okay. And, when you're playing 8-man ball, I don't know how much of 8-man ball there is in Ohio, but it's not a lot. But in Kansas, that's kind of a thing. Okay. And you're at the mercy of being a positionless player, and you can do basically everything. You're going to be the running back, the receiver. You're going to block a lot. So he was an all-around athlete when he came to K-State. We didn't really know where to play him. So he started at receiver. I think he played a little bit of safety as well.
Okay.
And I think he's going to be a special team like maestro for us for a long time.
Perfect.
So at linebacker now, I think we kind of did that to like fill in bodies. But I'm going to throw my player's name into the hat, and it's going to be Chidi Obiese.
Okay.
My guy.
Stole my answer.
I'll snipe you.
You can have the same answer. That's all right.
Me and Bob love him. This is a guy. Kansas State isn't particularly known for a guy to get off the bus and intimidate a team.
Sure.
This guy is one of those dudes.
Okay.
We don't really have those too often, but he's a guy from Minnesota that was a basketball player. His brother is I think he's still with TCU. Kind of an all-conference linebacker at TCU, but he comes to Kansas State as a defensive end. At 6'6", armless 270 pounds, and he can move. He wears a absolutely nasty number 8. That is just aesthetically pleasing, and you gotta love those guys when they come off the bus and we look like we're a real team.
Right.
So we don't get the Ohio State 5-star guys that look like, they were lifting weights when they were 7 years older, and this guy, he plays the part well. He's a monster. I expect big things from him this year.
Yeah, Tyson Struberg is from Canton Galva in Kansas. It's a little less than an hour. But all of that is to say, I love what Chef mentioned about he's just an all-around athlete. That's really indicative of how Kleiman and this staff recruit players. They love to go after 3, 4, 5 sport athletes in high school. Avery Johnson played baseball, basketball, and football up until his senior year. They love to go after guys who have a ton of talent and a ton of athleticism. And, Keenan Garber is another guy who was recruited as a wide receiver, fairly highly touted local guy, just didn't quite work out at wide receiver, but he's now one of our better cornerbacks.
Okay.
They just love to take guys and plug and play. If they have that athleticism and they have the talent, they are able to identify that super early on. Felix Anudike Uzama is another example of a guy who just kind of had a bigger frame. He was a really skinny, lanky-looking dude. If you Google pictures of him from his recruiting visit, you will be shocked at how skinny he was. But they saw the potential in him, and they went after it. They developed him. He bulked up, and he became a first-round draft pick to the Kansas City Chiefs. So I love how this staff goes out and identifies and then develops that talent and raw athleticism, turning it into good position players on the field. As far as my player, I'm going to throw out there, it's going to be Toby Osunsami. He's switching to edge this year from linebacker. He's a Wichita guy, so he's near and dear to my heart. Yep. Fellow Wichitans, so I'm going with Toby O.
Okay, nice.
Another guy who was like a track star in high school as well. He had just tremendous athleticism.
Awesome.
It's amazing to see guys that big run track.
I'm going to go with Jace Brown, who last year really kind of flew, I think, a little bit under the radar in the beginning part of the season, and really showed towards the end of the season that he's going to have the capability to be probably our top wide receiver going into 2024. He was a true freshman last season. He was Avery Johnson's roommate. Already had the connection there.
Oh, yeah.
He had a couple huge games kind of towards the end of last season, had almost 100 yards receiving at KU. He's really shown the ability to make some really good catches, has really good footwork. He's learning and just kind of showing that he's going to have the ability to make some big plays. So I didn't necessarily pick a guy who didn't play last season, but at the end of the day, I would have never said Jace Brown was probably like our number one wide receiver at the end of last year because he was a true freshman. So I'm expecting a huge sophomore season for him. And again, just with the connection with Avery Johnson, I think it's going to make sense that, our wide receivers together, I think he's going to be the number one guy for him.
He wasn't even the number one wide receiver in that recruiting class, which is weird to say. I mean, we had guys like Trey Spivey and Andre Davis in that same recruiting class, and people kind of forgot about Jace Brown, a kid from Florida, and he put his head down, he grind, and he emerged.
Fair enough. Well, I mean, speaking of next year, this is the point of the interview where we kind of put y'all on the spot, and y'all have to give us either your homer picks or your realistic picks of what you guys think you're going to go.
Way too early.
You're way too early. Predictions
for next year.
And so all three of you can go at once if you want to, and just fight amongst yourselves about what you guys think you're going to do, or if you guys want to, just go one at a time, like you've been just.
I did see the episode of your show where you went through and were doing like your top 5 of the Big 12. So I kind of have an idea of where this is going to go, but I'll let you guys take it.
Yeah, I think we're going to be the top of the 12. That's, in my opinion, I think we're set up for that. We have the championship experience. There's guys on this team that still have that ring sitting on their finger and we're part of that too. So we have the ability to do it. I think we have the talent. I think we're going to lose one game in the regular season. I think we'll win the conference championship.
Probably around October 12th.
No. Not a chance. That's DEFCON 5. He lose that again.
So we got to stop saying not a chance and guaranteed.
Yeah, Dion keeps receipts, guys.
He does.
I don't want to do anything.
If we're gonna get old takes exposed, we're going to just happen.
I'm okay with that because I'm gonna be. Right now, the plan is to be in Colorado for that game.
Okay.
I'm prepared to get hit with piss balloons. I'm prepared for it all. I'm ready for everything. They're nasty people, in my opinion. There's horror stories coming from Boulder. There's horror stories, but for me, I think we lose one game. I think we skated. I think we skated some of the top teams in this conference. It was not on the schedule. Arizona is a non-con game. Week 3 on a Friday. That one could be tricky.
Yeah.
Out of conference schedule other than, Tulane is rebuilding. Willie Fritz left for Houston. So I don't think Tulane, who we're looking for revenge because they tapped our ass in Manhattan, was that a couple of years ago? Didn't like that. So I could see revenge on the mind. I'm still in 11-1 regular season. And I sneaky pick UCF in the conference championship game. They're scary good too.
Okay.
I also think we are going to be winning the Big 12. I'm very high on this team. I think from an offensive perspective, this is going to be one of the most dynamic offenses we've seen at K-State in a very long time. Our defense is one that it's coming together. I observed that, but add some guys have left, and there's going to be some replacing that has to go on, and I think some guys are going to have to step up. But I think the reason why I'm very high on this team is I'm expecting that we're going to be scoring a good number of points in the game. So sure. I really think, we're going to be in a position where, if we lose a game, it's a shootout. It's not going to be 17-14 or anything like that. Chef went 11-1. I also believe we're going to be 11-1, but we're going to win the conference title game, and we'll enjoy a game in the college football playoff. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go, 13-2, counting the loss in the college football playoff, I would imagine. I also think, just looking at the schedule and looking where we might trip up, I think maybe even that Arizona game early in the season would be an opportunity to trip up potentially. So with it being a non-conference game, though, the interesting part about that is it won't count towards conference records. Right. So if you lose that game, in theory, that's the game you should lose when we're looking at, conference standings. So I'm going to say 13-2, catch to the CFP, and losing to Ohio State.
Okay. And it's wild. And it's wild because, this is an evolution of, before we took our hiatus of our podcast, we were kind of talking about the team and where we thought we could see them out. We were floating 9 and 3s out there. We're too sure. This might be a homer pick, but I'm feeling so much better about this team post. Fair enough. Knock on all the wood in here. We came out relatively uninjured. Yep. We didn't have huge departures. Everything just seems like it's coming together, and this feels very 2012. This feels very, we had high expectations for that 2022 team. We had high expectations last year. It feels like all those, and I think it's a testament to what Chris Kleiman does and how he's brought that championship DNA from North Dakota State, where the expectation is to win
right
every day. And we're not here to, be a middle league program and build every 4 years to make a run. I think he's set it up to, let's go after it every year, give it our best shot. And I think a one-loss season is kind of where I'm floating. I don't know where that loss is, but I still feel very, very strong about this team.
Yeah, it's always nice when you can get through spring and still have a confidence and have a, there was no big issues, no big departures, nobody got hurt. That's a blessing when you can get through like that.
Definitely. Well, that's all the questions we got for you guys tonight. We appreciate you guys coming on. You want to give our audience a shout out to where they can find you?
Yeah, you can follow the show at Cocaine Willie and follow any of us individually. I'm at Bob Trollsby. Chef is at Chef Andre Napier, and Fireball Matt is at Matt Marchesini. We're also part of the College Huddle, so check out the College Huddle as well. thecollegehuddle.com, or follow on any of the social media apps at College Huddle.
Perfect, and we'll have all that linked below. So you guys he'll have all that linked below, so you can have that all in there.
But again, we appreciate y'all coming on tonight, and we hope you guys the best of luck.
Of course. Thanks, guys.
Of course.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank y'all.